The sky was blue, the forest was a lush green, and I was surrounded. I had taken a walk through the forest, knowing it was filled with creatures, but I had to get stronger and get to Bandora's city. So I went, and I was amazed. The lushful green trees, the chirping of the birds fluttering through the air, the cool breeze blowing against my face, it truly felt like another world. As I passed through the forest, I saw several players fighting. One was a woman wearing a long white cleric's dress and who held a wooden staff as well. She was fighting off two orcs with her magic, and managed to kill them both with a binding spell. As I walked through the forest, a thought came to mind. How much time was passing in the real world? I opened the menu, making the swishing motion in the air. My menu opened up and on the side was the time. 8:35 p.m. DragonLight time. Under that was a second time, my time, also known as 7:35 p.m. Before I closed up the menu, I decided it was time to check my inventory. I clicked the tab to open it and found the equipment menu and the inventory menu right next to it. Currently equipped was the starter tunic and trousers, along with a single ring. I looked to my finger, and sure enough, a silver ring was on it. In the inventory menu were several crystal-looking objects, but I didn't check those yet. There was also a hat there, but when I equipped it, the hat seemed to look dumber than in the menu, so I took it back off. There were also 2 ration packs that could heal me for a short amount of time. Soon I made it to a checkpoint where I found a small little shack on the side of the road. An NPC was selling a bit of gear, health potions, and some sort of crystals. I didn't understand why, though, since the nearest boss was deep in the forest, far off from here. But as I continued down the path, I realized soon enough. After taking a few steps ahead, they ambushed me. Several large puffs of smoke exploded in the path, whirling up a small whirlwind of magic and death. 5 warlocks appeared out of nowhere, all holding their staffs. I reached out for my sword, but clumsily fumbled with the sheath as they all began chanting spells.
私は死を呼びます。
5 large blackened spears of darkness appeared on the ends of their staffs, and I yelped in fear. They all fired at me, and I was forced to dive out of the way as they collided. A large explosion of dark magic sent me flying into the dirt, the sword finally falling from my sheath. I got up and nervously held out my sword, ready to defend myself. Each had health bars split into 4, and their mana seemed almost full, even after their dark magic. This would definitely be a tough fight, and for someone like me, it'd be virtually impossible. The 5 began firing once again, and I slashed my sword, cutting through one of the black spheres. It exploded into smoke, and as the other 4 flew at me, I knew I wouldn't be able to block them all. I tried to dodge, but ended up slipping on a twig and barely missing all of them. As I struggled to get back up, I realized I had accidentally opened my inventory. I spotted something in the top left that caught my attention, and reached out for the sparkling slot. After pulling my hand out of a square item slot, I took a look at the item I had retrieved, which was labeled Resistance Crystal. Crystals are items throughout the game that can give the user temporary status boosts. Crush the stone in your hand to activate it. After I stopped being distracted by the stone's shininess, I remembered I was still in the middle of a fight. I grasped the stone and in a single movement crushed it in my grasp. The stone shattered into light in my hand, and suddenly I felt a burst of adrenaline. I felt strong, like I could take 1,000,000 hits to the chest. This was even more exhilarating than the time I accidentally drank 14 Red Bulls. Without bothering to realize my limitations, I rushed into battle. I charged forward at them, and they raised their staffs, chanting something else before firing a large beam of dark magic at me. I stopped and launched myself into the air, jumping right over them. After regaining my balance, I realized the immense power I had. The 5 warlocks turned around, but only after I activated combat mode and one of the elemental attacks. With several carefully aimed swings, I slashed at one and cut through its robe and deep into its flesh. Before it could attack once again, I stabbed my sword through its stomach. The creature exploded into light, and I watched as my sword began to glow, the energy attack ready. Dunless had told me this was the worst sword in the game, but this fight was telling me otherwise. The other 4 warlocks approached me, and I smirked. My glowing blade dug into the chest of one of the warlocks, and the creature exploded into darkness upon contact. The other 3 backed up, and one of them cast another spell, creating a ball of fire that flew directly at me. I sliced right through the ball and cut it in 2, causing a small flaming explosion that I simply stepped through. The warlock looked at me in surprise, and I quickly cut him down with a single slash through the waist. It let out a single gasp as its upper half separated from its top half, splattering against the ground before exploding into 1,000,000 tiny light particles. One of the warlocks cast a spell, and I watched as their staff transformed into a sword. They swung at me, and I narrowly dodged before swinging back, clashing with them once again. But when the sword began to glow white, I realized this was a trap. It turned back into a staff, and he quickly zapped me with a shock of electricity. I was stunned and stumbled back a few feet as I recovered from the shock. But I rose up like it was nothing, and to be honest, it didn't even feel that bad. I had once stuck a fork in an electrical outfit, and what I had just experienced didn't even compare to that. The crystal must have protected me. The warlock eyed me as I charged at it and readied my sword once again. I then watched as they cast a Stones of the Earth spell, and several large spiked boulders exploded from the ground behind me. I jumped into the air as a stone exploded from beneath me, and I activated an elemental attack. Flame burst! I landed back on the ground right in front of the monster. I swung my sword and it slashed into the warlock's chest, and darkness exploded from the wound like it was blood. The creature fell to the floor, disappearing in a puff of black smoke. That left two more warlocks, both of whom were hoping to avenge their fellow comrades' deaths. The other two eyed me, and each pointed their staffs directly at me. A spell exploded from the tip, and I readied myself. A beam of black magic rings flew directly over my shoulder, though after dodging the attack I noticed the second man had not cast his spell yet. Without noticing, a flash of light came from behind. The ground began to rumble, and four large vines exploded from the ground. They grabbed my arms and legs and restrained me, the thorny vines constricting me. The black roses told me enough. The binding of the shadow spell. Damn it, I shouted as I tried to break out. I saw this in a hentai once, and it did not end well. The vines tightened, the thorns digging into my skin. I tried to shake my arms and legs, but they were stretched to the max. My sword had also fallen from my grasp and was lying a few feet away in the dirt, so that wasn't an option either. With no secondary weapon, it seemed like I had lost. Slowly the warlocks approached me, grinning evilly from beneath their hoods. With the resistance crystal wearing off fast, it wouldn't take much from the two of them to drain my health bar down to 0. By the time the spell wore off, I'd be coughing up blood on the side of the path. And if they did take me out, I'd have to restart all the way back in the village. Hey guys, any chance we can make an agreement? I can recommend some really good anime websites if you guys are into that. Is there even EV in this place anyways? Who cares? Why don't you just not kill me, alright? Please? I asked in panic as I tried to stall them. They didn't answer, and instead rose their staffs to attack. I growled. Damn NPCs have the intelligence to outsmart me, but can't even answer a simple question. Warlock cackled.
We don't interact with simpletons like you.
I groaned and began kicking, still trying to break out, but despite my best attempts, it seemed like I was truly gone for good. That was, until someone screamed from the other end of the path.
Metallum Bellator!
As the chant was called, the ground began to shake. The vines retracted themselves, and many shiny stones began to erupt from the ground. I watched with the stones all smashed into each other, fusing together to form a large metal creature, a golem of some sort, with many different metals making up its body. The golem smashed its fists down into the ground, knocking the warlocks off their feet. The two cowered in fear as the golem approached them. It stopped in front of them and simply slapped the two to the side with its large metal arm, shattering all the bones in their bodies as they smacked against a tree. I looked at the golem as I knelt up. The creature simply waved before ceasing its attack. It became immobile and simply broke apart into the original stones that had created it. They clattered to the ground and despawned, leaving no trace of its origin. But that had to be a spell, and someone had to have cast it.
Leave me alone, you creepy little pretzel face!
A voice shouted. I turned around, seeing the situation from afar. Two warlocks were surrounding another player, who was attempting to fend them off. Judging by the mana bar above her head, her magic level was too low for another high-powered spell. The two warlocks, however, had plentiful mana, and were using it to shock her with volts of dark blue electricity. The girl needed help, and I was the only person in the area. I took a step forward, but then began to rethink the decision. In most cases, a sign of danger meant run in the opposite direction. Usually it was other people that had to help me, and I'd never been in this situation. If I tried to save her and more warlocks showed up, we both might be killed. But I had to remember that she did cast the spell to save me instead of her. I sighed and unsheathed my sword again, charging towards the girl and the warlock. I swung my sword to activate an elemental attack as I ran, hoping to catch them by surprise. My sword burst into flames as I sliced through the neck of one of the warlocks, killing him. The other turned, whacking me in the face with his staff. I fell to the floor and dropped my sword as the warlock broke the spell on the girl, aiming its wand at me. I yelped and rolled out of the way as it began firing several more fire spells, setting the ground on fire. The girl rose up from behind the warlock and whacked him on the back of the head with her wand, knocking him out. She then aimed her wand at his back and fired a simple spell, disintegrating him instantly. I then rose up and began slapping at my trousers, which had been slightly burnt by the fire. It was then that I noticed the girl. I looked up to see her staring at me, holding her wand close to her body. She was looking at me with curiosity, but hadn't decided to speak yet. The frown on her face probably meant she was weirded out with me, though. She wore a white top, exposing her pale stomach and white shorts with a belt and sheath. The girl's breasts were not large nor flat, but an average size. A golden necklace was hanging from her neck as well. Her skin was pale and her eyes shining green, her hair also a cute blonde. One thing stood out, though. She wasn't human. She had 2 ears sticking out her head and a long bushy tail. A fox girl? Usually I wasn't one to talk to girls, or people in general, but I shrugged and decided to go for it. Hi. Her frown disappeared and was replaced by a happy smile, and her whole demeanor changed as she waved at me.
Hi, I'm Kira.
Oh, Aldren, I think, I said nervously as I fumbled with my sword and sheath. I managed to sheath my starblade, but her bushy blonde and white tail wagging behind her was a bit distracting. She looked at me and then back to her tail, noticing that I'd been staring.
Um, are you looking at my tail?
She asked nervously as she grabbed onto it. Oh, sorry, it's just a bit, unusual, I guess, I said, still staring at it.
Stop looking at my tail. I'm a Vixen. Deal with it. Don't act like it's the first time you've ever seen one,
She said as she blushed. She was kind of cute. What a Wikizin was I didn't know, and she seemed to realize that by the puzzled look on my face.
You don't know? A fox girl, basically. You didn't get a choice to choose your race at the start?
She questioned curiously as she tilted her head. I shook my head. I hadn't actually gotten that choice. Was it not offered up to males, or did I accidentally skip it over? Knowing my idiocy, I probably ended up clicking too fast and skipped through it. I don't think so. So, I should probably keep going. I've got a long way to Bandora City, I told her nervously as my body began to heat up. She smiled.
Oh, you're going to Bandora City too? Do you want to come with me?
Come with you? I'm not sure, I said nervously.
Oh, well, I mean, you don't have to. Only if you want.
She said nervously as well, a small blush appearing on her cheeks. I could tell we were both extremely nervous. I mean, if you want me to go, then yeah, I'll tag along, I guess, I answered her, feeling a bit lonely. I didn't exactly have any friends, so no way would I pass up a chance to befriend a fox girl. Even if I ended up passing out from embarrassment or stuttering a fuck ton, I would not give up. She smiled at me.
Yeah, I'd like that. We can both.
Before she could continue, she spun around, pulling out a small metal rod with a star on the tip. A wand, one that looked similar to the ones being sold in the Varlin village. Did that mean she was a new player too? Or was this just a commonly used model for wands? She aimed her wand at a nearby bush.
Sipakringusutan!
A large beam of sparkles erupted from the tip of her wand and blasted through the bush, causing a scream to come from inside. A small creature popped out, stumbling onto the path. A green pointy hat, a short white beard, and extremely beady eyes. I raised my sword, but Kira shook her head.
It's a gnome.
She walked up to the gnome as it began muttering under its breath in some foreign language. Without warning, she kicked the gnome into the sky, the tiny creature letting out a scream as it flew into the distance.
Oh, thank you for the rescue, Aldren-kun. I was kind of thinking you were gonna run away.
She said as she read my name that floated above my head. Nah, I wouldn't just abandon you. You cast that golem spell to help me. I had to at least repay the favor, I answered her. She smiled sheepishly.
Well, that was meant to save me, but I was a bit off on aim.
I frowned. Oh, okay then.
Sorry, I didn't notice you at first. Not until you ended up decapitating that guy. The blood a bit too much for you?
Kira asked. Not really. A bit unnerving, maybe, I answered her. The girl took out 2 crystals from her inventory, handing me one. It was labeled as a healing crystal. After muttering a quiet thank you, I crushed the gem in my hand, and sparkles surrounded my body as the health bar floating above my head replenished itself.
So, how long have you been playing this game?
She asked as she crushed her crystal in her hand. Oh, just a few hours. I picked up a pre-owned 5-Vision from a game store around the corner and just got to playing right away. I haven't really played many video games in a few years, so it's kind of back to basics for me. It's my first MMO, though, I answered nervously. Sorry, am I rambling?
No, you're fine. This is my first MMO too. My sister Liru started playing a month or 2 ago, so I thought it'd be fun if I got myself a system and joined her. I'm actually going to meet her on the way right now.
She told me with a smile. Is she in the city? I asked her. She shook her head.
She's with a friend of hers in the forest helping her grind. I was contemplating whether or not to go with them, since they were thinking about fighting the Warlock King. Do you want to go?
I made the decision without thinking. Yeah, that works. As we walked through the path leading through the forest, I began to think if I'd made a mistake. The only people I had any social interaction with besides my family were Naomi, James whenever he decided to show up and beat me, and my friend in the black hat, who showed up to talk from time to time. With a lack in social skills, I wondered whether I'd be able to start any conversations with this girl. After a while, I started drifting off. I had a paper to finish tonight, so I'd have to try and do it after I got off the game. I reminded myself to keep checking the time on the menu and make sure I didn't play past 9. I'd stayed up late the night before, and my minor insomnia was a bit of a curse. Since I'd been unable to sleep, I'd gotten a bit busy with my drawer of hentai drawings, which only kept me up longer. Kira turned back around and looked at me.
Hey, Aldren-kun.
Yeah, I answered nervously, a bit amused by the name she had called me.
Do you think I'm cute?
She asked with an innocent smile. I stopped, blushing slightly. She just asked that out of the blue? I mean, of course, she looked adorable. Well, that depends on the pretense, I think. Why do you ask? I mumbled.
Well, you kinda have one of those things.
She said nervously as she pointed down between my legs. Immediately, I attempted to cover myself as she giggled, amused at my embarrassment. My first encounter with a girl other than my sister's best friend, I was already fucking it up. I should blame myself for letting my mind drift off to things I saved when I was home alone.
Don't worry, there's a spell for that, I think. Well, I didn't exactly think learning it was important, so this'll either fix that or leave you needing some major surgery.
Kira told me as she aimed her wand. Before I could interject, she flicked her wand downwards. A flash of light hit my body and I stopped, feeling a bit of shock hit me. But it faded quickly, and I noticed the bulge was gone as well. A bit relieved but still embarrassed, I muttered, "Thank you." I rose up, watching as she put her wand back away. I gave her the usual death stare I gave others, and she smirked, walking down the path while I followed sullenly behind.
Want a snack?
She asked me. Snack? Isn't food in this game just for healing? I questioned curiously.
Nope, just like real-life food. It tastes just as good, sometimes even better.
She answered. Kira then opened up her menu, scanning her inventory as she looked for a specific item. She tapped a box in her upper right corner, and I watched as a small, familiar box appeared in her palm. It was none other than my occasional favorite treat, chocolate Pocky. She quickly ripped open the box, grabbing a piece and sticking it in the corner of her mouth. She took one and threw it to me. I caught it in my hand and she smiled, watching me and waiting for me to eat it. I stuck it in the corner of my mouth and smiled, watching as she giggled, nibbling on her own piece of Pocky as we continued down the path. I never thought on a day like this I'd be walking through a warlock-infested forest with a fox girl nibbling Pocky.
There!
She pointed towards a fork in the path, one leading deeper into the forest and the other leading out into a large grassy field. Making the seemingly dumb decision, she chose the one going deeper into the forest. She skipped down the dark path, leading into the shadows. Do you think that's a good idea? I asked her as she skipped into the shadows.
Scared of the dark? I can always leave you there if you want.
She exclaimed as she skipped away. I drew my sword from my sheath, following her into the forest. I didn't exactly feel safe here, especially as we moved farther and farther out from the main path. But as I walked through, the trees looked becoming darker, and soon the trunks were black and leaves red. The path was thinning as well, moss and overgrown grass overtaking it. Where are we going? I asked as I approached something huge. A large swamp, the water a murky black and large bubbles occasionally popping up.
Just a little deeper. The live map says my sister should be close.
She told me as she looked around. Live map? I questioned. She looked at me like I was dumb.
Yeah, it's this cute little map thing that shows you nearby entities. Open the menu and toggle it.
I made the swishing motion, the menu opening up. I clicked on the settings tab and on the live map switch. I flicked it on. In the corner of my vision, a circle popped up, showing a 2D map of the area. A blue dot was a bit away from us, reading Lero 019, and another dot next to it, though its username was blocked out. Kira ran forward, hopping across a few stones in the swamp to get towards the other side. But as she progressed across the bog, I realized what was blocking the second dot's username was a large red dot. Kira, I wouldn't suggest that! I shouted as I reached out for her hand. Out of the swamp came a large creature, which splashed water everywhere. Kira jumped back, stepping a few stones back as we drew our weapons and stared at the menacing creature standing in front of us. An achievement appeared on the corner of my vision. Rare monster discovered. Bog monster. I readied my star blade for a fight. A rare monster would probably be tough, and its appearance already gave the feel of an enemy with high defense. The monster had a human-like stature, but was coated in a thick layer of seaweed, mud, and twigs. 2 red eyes were glowing out from beneath the mud, and the vibe it gave off certainly wasn't good. It growled and began approaching us, ready to attack. Kira pulled out her wand, spinning it around and casting a spell.
Glow whip!
I watched as a large golden whip extended from the end of her wand. She whipped it, the beam wrapping around the creature's body. It growled and struggled to get out, but seemed completely trapped.
Shogakia!
A large spark of electricity coursed through the wand, extending up the tip and sending a large wave of electricity through the creature. It roared and screamed, smashing its fist down into the water. However, not only did the electricity hit the monster, it also hit the water. And just as it hit the water, 4 more red dots appeared on the map. "Kira, get out of there!" I shouted, but it was too late. I watched as 4 more of the bog monsters burst from the swamp, surrounding Kira. She gasped, her spell breaking and letting the first monster escape. She yelped and tried to move back across the stones to me, but she wasn't fast enough to escape their grasp. She dodged as they began to slash at her, one of them knocking her wand from her hand as she attempted to use a fire spell. It sunk into the swamp water and she knelt down, trying to pick it out of there. One of them then approached her from behind, grabbing the back of her shirt. I had to do something. I swung my sword and activated an elemental attack, a fiery aura surrounding my sword. I then charged and slashed at one of the bog monsters that had neglected to notice me, and I cut straight into its body. The blade cut deep, but the thick layer of mud and dirt covering it was too much. Eventually, the blade stopped and I had to jump back, ready for another swing. But the creature growled and slashed at me, hitting me across the side. I flew backwards, smashing into a tree and falling to the floor. My sword clattered to the ground, and before I could retrieve it, the creatures all rose their fists to smash Kira into the ground. She turned around and shrieked, the creatures only inches away. "Kira!" A shadowy figure flew through the air, jetting across their bodies and cutting straight through them. He then stopped next to me, holding his weapon out to my neck. A man, wearing a black and blue ninja-like costume, stood up. His face was hidden except for green eyes peeking out of the hood. He held a long katana, a sickle clipped to his belt. Before I could even talk, the monsters exploded, breaking apart into mud and sticks and sinking back into the swamp. Kira was cowering on the rock, trying to climb back onto the path. I got up and rushed towards her to try and help her up, but I was shoved out of the way. A girl pushed past me, running out from behind the man and jumping into Kira's arms. She looked similar to Kira and was a Rikuzen as well, except instead of orange and white hair, she had pink and white. Her tail and ears did look slightly different, though. She also had a katana on her back. The girl helped Kira up, grabbing her by the shoulders before turning to eye me. I gave a nervous wave as she stood in front of her sister, reaching to the katana sheathed on her back.
"Sister, who is this?"
The pink-haired girl asked as she gripped the hilt.
Geez, sis, you really gotta act all hostile to anyone you meet? This is Aldren-kun. He helped me get here.
She answered. I waved shyly before clasping my hands together and waiting for an answer. The girl glared at me before stepping back, letting Kira speak.
Aldren-kun, this is Liru, my sister. She chose the swordswoman class. Don't know why, though. I told you to go magic.
Kira announced.
"Kira, you know damn well why I like swords."
Liru growled at her sister.
Yeah, but can a sword do this?
Kira said as she wiped off her muddy wand. She waved her wand, a small glowing object appearing. The glow faded, revealing a candy wrapped up in a blue and gold wrapper. Liru snatched it, ripping off the wrapper and gobbling down the candy. She then looked to Kira's triumphant smirk and glared.
So who's your friend, sis?
Kira asked as she looked to the masked man. We both looked to him. His username read, X Lance the Killer.
Call me Lance, or Jack. I have too many names, too many users.
He said tiredly. His voice indicated he was laid back, but there was something about him. His hand was still on his sword, while Liru had sheathed hers. He was still on guard, and he hadn't lowered his sword away from my neck once. Liru gave him a nod, though, and he quickly sheathed his sword. One other thing I realized. My eyes widened and my jaw almost dropped. He was level 60. It wasn't that shocking to find a level 60 in this game, but in an area like this? This was supposed to be a starter area.
"I met him a bit ago. He offered to help me grind. His friends were all busy, so he said he had nothing better to do."
Liru explained as she looked at Jack. Jack turned around, walking towards the edge of the swamp. He then rose a finger to his lips. He whispered,
Kyokutana supido.
Jack disappeared in a puff of smoke, and we all watched as he reappeared on the other side. He hadn't used a teleportation spell. Only the mage or cleric class could do that. It looked like some kind of skill a ninja would use. His outfit certainly gave off that vibe.
I'm off to fight the Warlock King. You wish to come?
He asked mysteriously. I looked at Kira and Liru. Liru was looking down, most likely still thinking. However, Kira's eyes were shining. She definitely wanted to.
All right, let's go then.
Jack said to us as he walked down the path, waiting for us to follow. Kira skipped ahead, and I followed close behind her. Liru sighed and shoved past me rudely, walking beside her sister as I walked behind them. Felt like a third wheel, even though there were 4 of us. But I'd gotten myself into this situation, so I had to go on with it.